Good morning. Let me turn my music down for me at least. That's not... Okay, cool. It's Friday. We made it. It has been a week. Hey, good morning, Lucas. Yeah, it's been an interesting week actually. The last couple days I've been working on steps towards I don't have a better name for it than like multi-hop routing, but basically like real routing, if that makes sense. So in the book on feature overview, we've got our this is probably the thumbnail, but we've got our bridge connection where instead of just like one-to-one or many-to-one, having like, oh hey, we have actual hops, maybe many of them. And I've been working on that. It's going. Let's look at some pull requests since Wednesday. Let's see. Tropage or Reto added some pull requests that fix some links. I think I probably just moved folders around and forgot that I broke links, and also making sure that the licenses are linked up right. So thank you for that. That's awesome. I think I talked about this. Let's see, was this before I guess this is before the end of the day stream. So yeah, got this going. This is the getting some of the cool like boxed pin streams and stuff like that going, which is a little bit more on safe code, but is very, very cool usability wise. And then this is kind of the start of the routing stuff. So this first pull request added to the send error method an option interface ident. So interface ident is something that the profile has for identifying which of its interfaces it is. So like usually if you have a single interface or no interfaces, you could just use the empty tuple type of like, this is the only one that I have. For the direct router ones, usually I think we use like a U64 or something like that. So send error has an option, one of those, because if it's sent locally, then you can say none. If it came in off a remote device, then you can say some. Send raw always comes in off an external device, so it does that. So a lot of this, I went back and forth a couple times when I was working on this, but I think it ended up not too different. One of the interesting things was that deciding that send raw generally means that it like send raw should only be used by an interface for a packet that's coming in off the network. It shouldn't, like, you shouldn't locally do send raw. So I don't. There's not really a super way to enforce that, but it is sort of a convention. Then getting direct router working. Before it was using an edge profile, kind of like it was weird. It was a profile that held a profile. It was awkward. And then when I made the profile work right, the edge profile work right, it kind of didn't work great. So I kind of copied and pasted the edge profile and stripped it down, and that's what's now in. It's called Edge Target Hacks. I think I renamed it to Edge Target Plus in another pull request, but it's basically like, okay, well, I'm going to copy and paste this one, strip it down so it works like inside of a profile, and then leave the original one there. So this added basically like not a ton, but it added the concept of having the source interface that a packet came in off of, which you can use for routing decisions, and we'll see later where we end up needing that, because it ends up being an important signal in routing. Because if you want to know, like, hey, I've never heard of this route before, I need to know, like, okay, so if a packet goes through me to NetID 10 and I've never heard, or from NetID 10 and I've never heard of NetID 10, but it came in off interface number 2, I can go, okay, cool. I can add a route that says, okay, if I ever need to send something to NetID 10, I can go to interface 2, usually with like some timeout there so it doesn't get stale. But this is kind of like one of those basics of routing tables that you need in a lot of cases just to know where that came from. So that was the first PR in that series. If you look at the so this one's called like Do Routing Part 1. So then the next one is Do Routing Part 2. So this is starting to break up the direct router, because right now the direct router it assigns net IDs. So the direct router is this kind of friend. So for every external device that connects, it assigns it a net ID, and it just says, oh, okay, cool. Whenever I want to route a packet, I just look at the net IDs of all my connections. And so if this was like 1, 2, and 3, if I get a packet for 3, I go, okay, it's this one. But this doesn't help so much if we're in a case like this, and this is 10, and this is 20, and we get a packet for 20. I need to know that 20 is in the direction of 10. So that's... I don't know if this exactly did that, but it started working on that. So like instead of just having an array of interfaces, like before I just had an array of interfaces that I would search for where to route a packet. Now I have 2 key value stores, basically. One that's routes, which is net ID to a route, where a route is the network interface identifier, and the other is a route kind. And in this one, I only did directly assigned, because that's all that existed right now. But essentially, this way, if we go, okay, I want to send something to network ID 20, we get a route for that. And we go, cool, route. What is the identifier for that route? Okay, it's identifier 3. Cool, then I can go into my map of direct links and say, give me interface 3, which is some, TCP connection or NUSB connection or something like that. So that's kind of like, this is baby's first routing table is really what it is. And so then generally been cleaning some other stuff up. Adding some logic, like if we look up a route and it says to go to an interface that we don't have, then removing the route. And then some logic like, hey, if we get a message in from interface number 2, and when we do routing, we decide that it should go back out interface 2, we just start throwing routing loop errors where we go, nope, I'm not gonna cause a routing loop, so nope. So a lot of this is just cleaning up that. I'm trying to make these PRs kind of one step at a time, so if anyone's following along at home, hopefully it shouldn't be too challenging, but let me know if you have questions. Then a quick little... Someone had the build code faster on macOS, so disables, it's not system integrity protection, but it's like the virus scanning on new binaries. So I added a clean script just so I could clean this, and it's hilarious to watch it remove 10, 12, 15 gigabytes of data across all the demo projects and stuff. So now there's a clean script if you want a clean script. I should probably not drink directly into the mic. Sorry about that. And then the most recent one that has merged is teaching Direct Router how to act as a seed router. So a seed router is the one that hands out network IDs. It's kind of like a DHCP server, if that makes sense. Whenever you have an interface that needs an ID, you go, hey, can someone please give me an ID? So the way this would look in the book would be you plug in USB and we go, okay, cool, you're directly connected to me. By the way, this network ID is 10. And this one goes, great. Turns out I actually have a second interface. So when you first boot up, both of these interfaces will say they're local only. So they don't have a network ID yet. So it'll boot up and it'll kind of wait, and kind of implicitly it knows that upstream it will just be assigned. Excuse me. And so the PC will start sending packets and be like, hey, your network ID 10. And then this device needs to go, oh, cool. One of my interfaces has a network ID, but the other one doesn't. So what I'm going to do is now that I have at least one IP address, basically, I can go, hey, I need a net ID assignment, and it will broadcast it or send it up here and go, please assign me a network ID. And this one will go, okay, cool. Yeah, 15 is free. Okay, you can have 15. And this one goes, great, thank you. And then it assigns 15 to this. And then this one's in charge of saying, hey, every now and then I need to refresh this. And like, hey, I'm still using 15. Please keep 15. And this one will go, okay. And so that's what this is starting to do. So we have this concept of let me make the text a little bigger, of a seed net assignment. So this has some information like what is the net ID that we assign, how long from now does it expire, what's the max time that it will ever take to expire, how this is sort of like rate limiting, like do not renew before this time. And then we get just a refresh token. It's some number that the seed router chooses to say like, this is our password. Like we have a one-time, or not one time, but like a pairing code basically. So whenever you want to refresh your grant with me, use this one. And this way, so like if some system like reboots or gets corrupted or something like that, we can tell and give it a new ID or something like that. There's a bunch of things that can go wrong, like we ran out of net IDs, or I don't know you, or hey, I'm not a router that can seed. So the way that this actually, and I also added some docs, I basically added these as two new methods on the profile. So seednet assign and seednet refresh, or refresh seednet basically. And so these take most of that information, like, hey, where did you come from? Like who's requesting this? And I added these as default trait impls, which means all the existing interfaces just won't do them. Except for direct router, I'm starting to teach how to do that. So now that we've got these route kinds, now instead of just having direct assigned, we can also have seed assigned, and then I have this tombstone. So if one expires, we put like a tombstone on it so we don't reuse that immediately to give stuff time to time out, and we don't accidentally like start routing the wrong things to the wrong places. So this like makes sure that we don't reuse a network ID for some amount of time, basically. I've picked some times for this, like, oh, and I do this other thing. So, like, on the first time that you request a seed net assign, so, like, normally you would, like, refresh for 120 seconds, and then this says that you have to wait until there's at least, or less than 62 seconds left before you refresh. So, basically, you can refresh once it's half the timeout. So, you can't, like, you shouldn't be sitting there in a busy loop always refreshing. You got to wait a minute, or at least 58 seconds for it to refresh. But one of the things that I do is on the first time that you request it, I actually say that it's gonna time out in 30 seconds. And I use this as kind of a way, because there's no like explicit acknowledgement in the, hey, I want a seed, or I want a net ID assignment. And that one comes back and says, yes, here it is. So instead of having like an explicit acknowledgement, I just set the initial time to be fairly low. That way, basically the acknowledgement is you immediately try and renew this. And when you renew it, you get the full 120 seconds. So basically you get assigned and you go, great, I have one. Oops, it's time to renew. I'm going to renew right now. And you renew. And that sort of acts like an acknowledgement, because if you don't, then it means like if you're just kind of like requesting them and you have some logic problem, then it's going to time out pretty quick. It's going to time out after 30 seconds. It's not going to wait the full 2 minutes. But if you are able to just immediately renew, you can, and then you get kind of this like acknowledged, aha, I have checked my token. And I might even drop this down to like 10 seconds, so you have a very short time to renew. And that just serves as the acknowledgement. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just messing around with it right now. And then I have to add a bunch of logic for this on doing the assignment and the refresh. I don't think it's super complicated. It's mostly just like, hey, do we have one of those? Has it expired already? One of the things that I'm not sure if I love is now in routing, we do kind of check if someone has an expired route. And the thing I don't love about that is it means for every packet, we're basically getting a timestamp, which on the standard library and on microcontrollers, it's not super expensive, but like getting a timestamp in a hot loop is it's one of those things where it's a little more expensive than you expect. It's still not very expensive, but it's a little bit more expensive than you think. So I don't know if I love that, but it's fine for now. If benchmarking decides it's a problem, then we'll fix it. But yeah. I just know like on embedded, to get a 64-bit timestamp, it does require a critical section because you're getting a 64-bit number on a 32-bit system. So getting timestamps is not like, it's not a ton, but it is a little. So yeah, I cleaned up some NetID logic of like doing the assignment just because I want to reuse it in a couple places. But that's the big difference with that. So that's all working, but basically there's no like observable change right now because we don't have anything that requests this. And actually I haven't written the service yet that like handles the request for it. So there's basically like you could at the code level do it, but like I don't have any demos for this yet. The next step is probably to make a version of this edge interface where this one will connect like normal, but then also just request a NetID. It probably won't do anything with that NetID. I need to maybe I don't even need to change the interface or the profile at all right now. I might be able to just make the thing that says like, okay, give me an interface. Great, I've got interface 5. I don't have anything to do with that, but I have it, and then I can add it to the routing table here that packets for 5 should go here, but then they're all gonna bounce, like, because the interface doesn't know anything about it. But that's probably the like step 1 will be adding the code that does the request, and then just kind of like puts the NetID in its pocket for no reason, and then yeah, I mean that's probably what I'll do. And then eventually make a version of the profile that like does have a separate interface, and then figure out how to do all the code for that. But I'll try and do it incrementally. So I think the first step is, or the next step, I should say, part 4 is adding a service here that does the request for a route, even though it has no actual like interface to assign that to. Because this is one of those choices that I'm making, is that I want to do all of this stuff like at the protocol layer. So there's no above the protocol layer, like in user space basically. So like asking for an assignment is just another endpoint or topic or something like that. So instead of having like hard-coded network protocol, it's more like DHCP or whatever that does it at like an application server level. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. That's probably all I have. I don't think I have. Now's a good time for questions if you have any, because I'll probably wrap up soon and start coding. The other thing is realizing that it might be cool to have a version of a different version of broadcast, and I probably need a new name for it. But right now, like when you broadcast, we basically look, like, where is this? So like if you were to broadcast from this device, it's going to go out this way and out this way. And when it gets here, this device is going to go, cool, first I'm going to send it out on any other interfaces. So I'm going to send it this way, and then I'm going to look at this interface and go, wait, no, that's where this came in on. Don't send it back. And then I'm going to say, okay, does anyone locally want this message? And then I'm going to offer it to everyone local. And then once I've sent it out on all of my interfaces and offered it to everyone locally, then I'm done. It would be cool to have a different version that when you get a message comes in, first thing we do is go, does anyone locally want this? And if the answer is no, then it keeps sending it onwards. But if it goes, hey, does anyone locally want this? And it goes, oh yes, I want this packet. Great. Then we just say, okay, you're done. Don't forward it up here. So instead of being like flooding all the way out, it's flood until you get your first hit. And I think this would be useful for like logging and stuff like that. One thing I don't know exactly what it should do, because like if you're sending from here, it will send it this way and this way. Ideally, kind of like what you want is you want almost like a lightning strike. You kind of like put little feelers out until the first one hits, and then you send like that. So it'd be interesting to eventually have a version that's like, oh, I took this in this direction and no one over here cared. Cool. Next time I won't send it this way, or I'll wait a while before I send it this way again, and I'll just keep sending it this way as long as someone's interested. Like, maybe that'll just end up being some kind of higher level discovery thing, but some kind of figuring out who cares and then only sending it to people who care. So you're not like, for example, sending a lot of logs. This other microcontroller doesn't care about our logs. Like, only the PC cares about that. So we need to figure out a way to like not necessarily know who's going to care about that at first, but once we do figure out who cares, only send it in that direction. And maybe the answer is just do a more pub sub kind of thing, where someone has like explicit subscribes for stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. It hasn't super been a problem when I haven't had deep routing because it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think that's the plan. So I'm still working on multi-hop routing. We're maybe halfway there. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe more. Not sure. Yeah, I'm hoping I have something fun to play with over the weekend or on Monday. So, yeah. I got because it's Friday. I'll probably stream a little earlier today at like 7. I'll probably go ahead and schedule that now just so people know. But yeah, this time next week I will be in or flying to China for Rust ChinaConf. So if you're in China, come check me out at the conference. But yeah, thanks all for watching. I'll give another maybe like 30 seconds just to say hey in chat, say you were here, or ask any questions. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful Friday. And I will catch you maybe in a couple hours this evening. Mitsuyoshi, what is this? This is a software project called Ergot. Ergot is a messaging library. It's written in Rust. So if you want to send messages between devices in Rust, especially little ones like microcontrollers, that's what this is. Hopefully that was a short enough answer for you, Mitsuyoshi. I'm interested in how you found me, but yeah. Hell yeah. And this is cold brew. It's always weird. I don't know. I don't know anything about YouTube. Maybe I need to like start half an hour earlier. Oh, hello. Yeah. I start like half an hour. I feel like 15 minutes into the stream, YouTube probably goes like, oh, okay, cool. People are actually here. I'm going to start showing it to people. And then, you know, the graph goes up. But whatever. Yep. Last call for questions. Thank you, Mitsuyoshi, for a good question. And I'm going to get to doing stuff. All right. Have an excellent day, everyone. Talk to you later. See you at 7 p.m. in about 8 hours from now.